When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, welcome back to the Grease Goblin YouTube channel. Today's video, we are going to be finishing out our series on talking about how could each of the Five Kings have won during the War of the Five Kings. In today's video, we're going to be doing Joffrey. So you guys might be thinking, as we're getting into this video, wait a minute, didn't Joffrey technically win the War of the Five Kings? And my response to that will be yes and no. I think Tywin won the War of the Five Kings. And Joffrey kind of gets killed right there at the end of it with the Purple Wedding. So in this video, we're going to talk about things Joffrey could have done in his reign to have helped House Lannister and keep his throne and not end up dying at the Purple Wedding. So before we get into this video, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment, please do. It helps the channel grow, reach our people that might like this content as well. And let's get into it. So the first thing I want to establish is we're going to be talking about Joffrey post Ned's execution, because you could just as easily have said, if Ned doesn't get executed, well, a lot of the bad things that happen, right, you kind of would have had one enemy to focus on being in Renly, and then Stannis. It would have made things a lot easier for Tywin. We're going to talk about kind of the things after that, like after kind of the initial part of the War of the Five Kings actually starts. So what are some things Joffrey could have done better? One, just don't be a prick in general. I mean, he, in general, got the public to hate him. And I guess that wasn't all on him, because there were certain things that he couldn't really handle, like there was no food coming into King's Landing. So that was something that Joffrey couldn't really control, but his general attitude, the way he handled himself, wasn't great. Another thing I think Joffrey could have done that would have helped him out would have been to not really have been involved, I guess, or making a lot of decisions, because something that I think is interesting is that until Tyrion gets there, Joffrey kind of has his way a lot more than he doesn't. And I think it should have been a situation where, as we see, like in Targaryen history, right? Jaehaerys the First, or known as probably the best king of Westeros, he didn't really come into making any decisions or anything like that until he was 16, and then he was able to, become king, really rule as his own right with his queen. Now, Joffrey has a bit more power until Tyrion gets there, and especially Tywin later on. Joffrey kind of is able to make his own decisions, stuff like that, which is not good. Joffrey very much should have been in a role of where he's just kind of sitting there learning and taking in and letting other people rule. Now, Cersei herself was pretty bad at ruling as well, but I think keeping him in a role where he's not really in charge would have been a good idea. And as well as Joffrey, to me, something that I think definitely he could have changed that would have helped out his fortunes was the way he treated Sansa. I think if he had treated Sansa better and treated her maybe more nicely. I know after Ned gets beheaded, it's going to be hard to kind of repair that relationship, but just don't act like a dick. It's just that kind of big idea. And then when Tyrion gets there, right, I think just let Tyrion do his thing. Tyrion was going to be in a good spot. And as we see, as I'll reference back to Jaehaerys' rule, where we had kind of Orys Baratheon with Jaehaerys' mother and letting them kind of rule, it's a very similar situation to kind of what Joffrey should have been going through. And I think just letting Tyrion rule would have been a good idea until Tywin would have gotten there. I think Joffrey, in a lot of those aspects, is what ends up getting him killed. Because the thing is, Joffrey doesn't do anything inherently wrong after Ned's execution, because he just really was not allowed to, kind of by Tyrion. He was kind of minimalized in his role as Tyrion got there. But I think if Joffrey had been an okay dude, I'm not saying a great guy, just someone that was not in a complete and utter ass, then he would have been fine. The Tyrells would have seen no reason to poison him. Marjorie and Joffrey would have had a pretty good rule. And what would have changed in this entire scenario is that there would have been, I feel like, more relative peace. I think Tywin wouldn't have died in the scenario in which Joffrey doesn't die. Maybe he still does with the poison from Oberyn. Who knows? Tyrion in this situation would not find himself in such a bad situation. And again, Joffrey, I think, having a bad relationship with Tyrion is another thing that ends up kind of hurting him in the end. It hurts more Tyrion in the end is more than it does Joffrey, because Tyrion didn't like do anything to Joffrey like poisoning wise or anything, but it deteriorates the family even more when Tyrion is the one that is accused of murdering Joffrey. So to kind of sum up, this is going to be a very short video because there's not a lot Joffrey action-wise could have changed. I'm saying him more of as a character, and taking more of a step back would have led to a more peaceful rule for him. And because of his general attitude and his outlook on, I guess, the world, and kind of he being a spoiled, mama's boy type thing, I think he would have been fine. But just because of his attitude, it just ended up with kind of Olenna and Littlefinger having to get rid of him. I know it's technically not confirmed with Olenna, but yeah, it happened. Okay, let's be honest. So that is kind of my video. Sum up, don't be a prick, and you might not be poisoned. So yeah, and thank you guys all for watching. The support on the channel has been crazy lately, so thank you guys for that as always, and I will see you guys in the next video.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.